Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thoughts. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 9 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Bergio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Bergio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. There's a section there that answers questions about being a guest. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is A. Benedict. A. Benedict, welcome.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here with you folks tonight.
Yeah, we're glad you can join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to share a classic poem for the episode. I will be sharing a short Emily Bronte poem entitled The Night is Darkening Around Me. Emily Bronte has lived from 1818 to 1848. Sadly, she died of tuberculosis at the young age of 30. She's most known for her novel Wuthering Heights and some poetry she did with the other Bronte sisters. They together published a collection of works under male pseudonyms, because back then it was hard to get published as a woman. But even at that, only like 2 copies were sold, and it didn't have much success. So during her life, her poetry didn't receive as much fame as later. The night is darkening around me. The night is darkening round me. The wild winds coldly blow. But a tyrant spell has bound me, and I cannot go. The giant trees are bending, their bare boughs weighed with snow. The storm is fast descending, and yet I cannot go. Clouds beyond clouds above me, wastes beyond wastes below, but nothing drear can move me. I will not, cannot go. Emily Bronte. So some of our poems this week kind of have a storm theme to them. And I thought this one was interesting because I feel like it could go a couple ways. The poet doesn't really state why she cannot go, what is specifically holding her back. She mentions this tyrant spell, but we don't know if that's a person, if that's some internal turmoil. So I just kind of found it interesting, and I liked sort of the ambiguity of the reader kind of figuring out what she's talking about.
That's exactly what struck me as well, Matthew, is that line, but a tyrant spell has bound me. There certainly is some ambiguity there. What is that tyrant? Is it the storm itself? But yet, for some reason, she's bound to it.
Yeah, I agree. Bill, any thoughts?
About the same thing you were. When I first read it, it's like, what's holding her back? Is it a mean guy? Is it a snowbanks? Who knows?
Right, because originally you kind of think it's the storm, but then it's the whole like, I will not or I cannot go.
Like you said, internal strife too.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to share his poem for the episode.
Okay, this is another weather-related poem. It's called The Rumble of Thunder. The rumble of thunder from afar, a flash of light on high. The storm approached from the west to make a dark gray sky. I fear the storm will be extreme and bring a most powerful gale, and torrential rain will heavy fall, followed by damaging hail. But the winds don't come, nor frightful rains, nor any destructive roil, a distant storm with gentle rains to nurture and moisten the soil. So I relax and drink my wine to see the storming through of splashing rain in puddles deep and enjoy the falling dew. Philip Bergio.
All right, thanks for sharing.
That's one of my things I like to do is sit and watch the rain and the thunderstorm, sipping on wine or coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly sipping on coffee, but it's hard to rhyme coffee. So
No, that's a great poem. I like where you had that middle part, that transition, but the winds don't come, nor frightful rains, nor any destructive roil. So you've got this anticipation that you're building up with this big storm happening.
right, we've had bad storms past few weeks. So
Yeah.
That was kind of the inspiration to this one.
I was just gonna say I like that imagery there, and I like the difference because I, as a storm watcher myself, I like I'll sit outside under a covered thing and watch a thunderstorm and heavy rains come through, but I also enjoy the sitting under the covered and watching a peaceful rain. It's
Yeah.
funny, actually. One of my Facebook memories as of late was a picture of me sitting on the front porch, enjoying a drink and a book and watching the rainfall.
In 2012, I don't know if you both remember the Superstorm Sandy
Oh yeah,
hurricane that hit the East Coast. I was living down the shore at the time. And fortunately, I did not sustain much damage, although I was without power for about 10 days. But I mean, some people actually lost their lives. So I actually wrote something about that, which maybe down the road I can share with you guys. But I actually wrote a poem about that powerful storm. I think there's something about the weather, obviously, that's conducive to poetry, but I think storms in particular, because there's so many different ways you can go with that.
yeah, and there's a lot of power and mystery with storms.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on. While we're on the storm theme here, I'm going to read my poem for this week. It's kind of following that same storm thing. This is called Stormy Night. O black sky staring back, reveal yourself this night. With wicked flashes all is seen by bolts of striking light. I see your clouds through drifting rains of showers passing by, and distant thunder calls your voice, which rattles the whole sky. Show your face beneath the dark, unveil the shaded cloud. Calm the voice which echoes near and cries to me so loud. Release the anger built inside, unbind frustration's hold. Come share your worries and your pain, a story to be told. For with the rising of the sun, your secrets all come clear, and I see your visit in the night was not for me to fear. Matthew Bergio.
I can picture you standing out there shaking your hand at the dark clouds.
I would say that was excellent. I really liked the imagery in that one. And the line that struck me in second stanza, and distant thunder calls your voice, which rattles the whole sky.
Thank you.
Great line.
Yeah, that was written on a dark and stormy night. It was one of those
Like a pirate ship appear on the horizon.
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think back in my college days, sitting in the apartment one night, dark and stormy night, lightning flashing all crazy, and it just kind of inspired that poem. And then you get some of those night storms, and then in the morning things are just wet and the sun still comes out sometimes. And I like to always tell my dog who's afraid of thunder that he's got 100% success rate of surviving storms. So
Oh, that's great.
he's scared of the thunder.
Poor
So,
thing. Yeah.
all right. Well, from there, we're going to move on. Hey, Benedict, welcome. You're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you, Phil. I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate the fact that you folks do this program and that you really concentrate and make a concerted effort to share with the world the importance of poetry. Poetry was always looked at by the public in general, I think, in more modern times as something a little too highbrow. Poetry's for anybody and everybody. So,
Yeah, we agree, and it's 100% why we do this. So tell us a little bit about your poetic background. Obviously, you've been writing poetry for a little bit. I see you've got 2 books out there.
yes, I guess decades ago, I started putting together a lot of work, original reflective poetry, prose, spoken word. And in 2013, I put together my first book. It's called Readings from Elysium, Works from the Streets to the Garden. And that basically was something that I did not expect to do. I put that book out. My mother had passed away in December 2012, and I got my interest in poetry from my mother. When I was a kid, she would read poetry. She would read Shakespeare to me, Robert Frost, Emily Dickinson, and that's where I started to develop my love of poetry and writing. And my mother passed away, and my family said that I had to give the eulogy. So here I am, 3 o'clock in the morning, the morning before the funeral, figuring out what am I going to say? What am I going to say? So I actually wrote a poem. That was my eulogy. I wrote a poem. And a couple of weeks later, something happened in my mind. I wasn't writing for a while, and I don't know. I guess it was my mother visiting me. She said, publish your stuff, put your stuff out there. So that was Readings from Elysium, Works from the Streets to the Garden. And the name I don't know if you're familiar with Elysium, but Elysium is the mythological place where noble Romans go when they pass on. It's the version of heaven. And the works from the streets to the garden. I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey. I lived in New Brunswick, New Jersey, two cities in the state. And that's where I would sit on my stoop. I would sit on my stoop and write a lot of poetry, and then eventually moved to the countryside where I would write in the garden. The one thing I will say about the book was it really is a compendium of my old, original, awful, terrible work. Really basic work from a novice, but I decided to put it out there anyway. But that book is basically written about a journey, a journey in the conventional sense, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But now the latest book I came out with, it's called A Return from Elysium, Racing Sisyphus Up the Mountain. And what I learned over the last several years from when I put the first book out was that the journey never ends. Journey always continues. There really is no beginning, middle, and end. It's continuous. And so what I initially thought would be a book that chronicled my journey, the first one, led me to believe one of my guiding principles that the journey is endless. There's no end to the cyclical nature of one's travels. And so as life's voyage continues, I recognize that I'm where I'm supposed to be. And it's the journey, not the destination, the existential question, when will I get to where I'm going? Where am I going to get there? Well, I think the right question is to ask, what am I going to learn along the way? So that was basically the fuel that put together the second book, A Return from Elysium. I'm going to read, I've got a couple of poems here, and they basically are part and parcel of the journey. The first one is called Let Me Return. Okay. And this is basically, hearkening back to the past and trying to reconcile what the past means to somebody. This could be either you or me or anybody we know. Let me return. Let me return to the days of wine, roses, and everlasting summer twilight. Night's purple curtain closing another show above emerald green fields and western skies. Mars climbs higher, flashing brighter beyond a hungry owl's cries. Let me return to evening's sunset canvas, where time stops and lasts forever. So much time squandered and drowned into oblivion, down with the sudsea stout of Guinness, wasted on youth, toasted by youth. Let me return to the 78 Buick, fully loaded with anxious anticipation, as my trembling hand opened the door for you. Your jasmine-scented neck was surely my cue. Let me return home for Thanksgiving, served up with a side of late autumn sun that barely shined through the greasy, opaque window next to the crooked table piled high with past holiday arguments. Let me return and relapse into never-ending snow-filled skies, wrapped in my winter of discontent. Decades of Christmas tales regaled as I wonder where they went. Spring breezes usher in a renewal, and the repeated rumination chiseled into my head said, you can never go back. But I asked to go back, to bear witness once more. Let me return to the river despite the words of warning that wash over me with multitudes of memories. I stand in the river's present water looking at the past as water flows endlessly, but I never stand in the same current more than once. Things change, including my perspective, my outlook, my desires, my needs. I say goodbye to those wasted dreams and continue my quest. Let me return. A. Benedict.
All right. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of good things I like there. One of my favorite lines was right at the beginning, the kind of the onset of dusk and night, the night's purple curtain closing another show. I think that's such a great line there.
Thank you.
I also love the crooked table piled high with past holiday arguments.
I like the little references to mythology and to Shakespeare. Just,
Yeah.
little things in there. Like Sisyphus and
Winter of
Winter of Discontent.
Yeah.
It was good. Good imagery. Like Matt said, I can see things,
Yeah. That's what we try. It's what we all try to do. We all try to paint a picture, that's what it's about.
Right. And there's a lot of that we can all relate to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for letting me read that one. So that's Let Me Return. That's, harkening back to the past. And the second one in this, I don't want to call it a trilogy, but as the journey continues, as I said, the journey continues. This one is called What I Thought I Knew. You ever reach that level where you say to yourself, wow, I've done it. I'm successful now, right? You guys ever reach that point, whether it be a job or something?
Oh, yeah, I've been there and come back from that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting you said that because that's what this poem is about. It's about, yay, I've done it, only to fall flat on your ass, basically. You have to start all over again. But you learn through that process what true success is about. So this is
Agreed.
called What I Thought I Knew. And this
Yep.
is a recent one. This is in the book, the new book. What I Thought I Knew. I must have amnesia because I knew it all when I was younger. I had more wisdom than all the books in King Solomon's library, and I was braver than Daniel in that lion's den. If I could only know now what I forgot I knew then. I chased a million sunsets, and they all burned me in the end. It didn't matter. I had much to pretend. Dreams of piles of cash, and cash became king. Visions of azure blue around an Amalfi coast, dappled by coral, canary, and tangerine houses to boast. I knew it all, but forgot along the path of virtuous intention as I went wandering, searching amid Roman ruins for a redemption. Destined to pay what I owed for those moments of gluttony and flashes of debauchery, times way too often treating others so horribly. I'll gladly pay the bill, a sentence for all that I've done. For chasing my dreams, for chasing that sun, I still serve my penalty, rolling that boulder up the mountain for eternity. But I pass Sisyphus every goddamn time. The new friends that I met along that mountain trail are the ones whom I first fought tooth and nail. They showed me life meant so much more than I initially thought. I was wrong when I spit upon their supplication and had no choice but to suffer immense indignation. My feet were worn to the bone as I ran from that crowd. But now I walk humbly alongside, barefoot and proud. I learned more from knowing nothing at all, because life has a way of making you small, hitting you hard, giving you amnesia. Am I bitter it happened? Not one bit at all. A Benedict.
All right. Thank you. Again, very well written. A lot of good things there.
I like that one. It was good.
I do like the not only here, but even the subtitle of your book, the Racing Sisyphus Up the Mountain or Up the Hill.
Yeah.
And I like your Sisyphus line in here that you pass him every
Pass him up.
time.
Yeah. In fact, the cover of the book, actually, to give props to my brother. My brother's a professional artist. He painted the front cover of the book, which, again, A Return from Elysium, Racing Sisyphus Up the Mountain, is on Amazon.com. And the book, basically, the cover has got two people. It's got Sisyphus, who's in the back, and I guess it's me or somebody on the boulder in front.
Nice. Yeah, I picked up a Kindle copy yesterday, so been looking at some
Oh,
of that.
thank you.
Don't have the
Excellent.
first book yet, but I did pick up the new book.
You got another poem for us?
Just have one more to read, actually.
Yeah, please
You know,
share. Yeah, you're the poet.
Okay, great. Now, this one continues the journey again. So, after racing Sisyphus up the mountain and all that other stuff, this person realizes, you know what, we're going to rewrite this story. So, they sit down and they decide, what's important to me in my life. So, this one is called Quill Pen Rewrite. Quill Pen Rewrite. Sat down to write my story the other day. In my fifth decade, stream of consciousness better defines it as a rewrite, restored like a weather-beaten antique desk with broken knobs. Sharpened quill pens scratched and reached, drawing from experiences of journeys past. Slopes, hills, and mountains define distinct landscapes that ground my feet to the paths that twist and move forward. Melodic, mournful memories burned away by the heated impermanence. Warm enough, but not scalding. Mistakes wallow in pools of pitiful regret as colorful challenges flow down ephemeral streams, supplicating and begging for a forgiving reset, washed away with hopeful dreams. The quill pen dipped in past fears that drip, drops, and swirls that soak question marks into reams of paper, printed into pages of this rewritten verse. A courageous lion prowled along desolate desert sand as fear vanished like the gazelles he chased into the tamarisk shrub. As king of my jungle, I chased away what chased me, over Himalayan hurdles and roaring sea. Forlorn, anxious lamentations pushed away with force like polar opposite magnets separating wheat from chaff. By stoic, sound decisions illuminate dark indecisiveness. Awakening from dreams I dreamt and nightmares that tormented my sleep, armed and ready with inherent wisdom purchased from Amazon.com. No, to hell with that. Enabled with the insight I learned from night after night when I sat alone, rewriting my story. The love of God. How does one love? How does one really love? A question better answered before I flew into the purple twilight to grab Eros's arrows, which I plunged into my own heart. The quill pen needs an ink refill, as does the empty pint glass on top of this antique, thirsty and desperate for another Guinness. So my rewrite can wait. Immeasurable, experiential, and transcendental lessons are still needed. I rise like the sun from my weather-beaten desk with the broken knobs to continue my story in an introspective way, at least until I pick up the quill pen and rewrite my story another day. A. Benedict.
All right, thank you for sharing. Man, I really like a lot of that one. A lot of good references. And just the whole concept, this whole concept of the rewrite. Now, I know I'm a little bit younger than both you and Phil, but I've gone through a couple of phases of my life, kind of like what you talked in the beginning with the what I thought I knew. But I like this whole concept of like the rewrite of the things change. You go through a lot of different things in life. And I even like how towards the end you're like, oh, maybe it's not time for the rewrite yet. That you're still growing, you're still developing, and at some point you'll do the rewrite another day.
Exactly.
I just went through a pretty good rewrite a couple years ago, and things are not going to stop being rewritten. It's always something different.
One of my biggest influences is actually not a poet, but Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I like Roman history and Roman things.
Yeah.
His cousin Mark, we correspond. Marcus Aurelius quotes.
Yeah, I was going to comment about your bio. I love that he was on there, but also Van Morrison and David Bowie. Amidst all these people like Robert Frost and these other well-known poets, like how you have the well-known, well, obviously musicians are poets in their own right too.
Like I told Matt, Paul Simon's one of my favorite poets.
Absolutely. Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah, Dylan. Yeah.
Van Morrison has been one of the biggest influences because he to me he's a lyrical poet. He's a master poet in his writing. He did a song called "On Hindford Street," which is one of the streets that he grew up on in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And you have to listen to that one. He basically reads it as a poem, but I could listen to Van Morrison read the phone book.
I'll have to check that out.
But to get back to your point earlier, Phil and Matthew, about the things you experience and rewriting. The Stoic philosophy that I try to adhere to is that, in life, there's things we control and there's things that we cannot control. So, focus on what we can control, and whatever fate brings to us, welcome it with open arms, because there's a reason.
In my kitchen, I have things hanging on my cabinet, and one of them is take life as it comes, Sicilian proverb. So take life as it comes. I'm going on a limb here. You're from an Italian family.
Right.
Yes, I am. I'm about 85% Italian and about 15% British. So
yeah, that's like about me. Yeah.
Oh,
My father was all Sicilian. My mother was half Sicilian and half Scottish.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're very
similar. Very similar.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you for sharing and thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to say about your work or what you're up to?
No. I just keep writing, and my, words of wisdom for what they're worth, which is probably not a lot.
Mention again where people can get your book.
Yes, Amazon.com. A return from Elysium, racing Sisyphus up the mountain. But what I was going to say was just, as I keep writing, I want all of you to keep writing. It's a gift, and it's a gift that we all have.
Matt's podcast forced me to keep writing poetry.
Good. Really enjoyed hearing your gentlemen, your poems as well. Your stuff is terrific.
Come back again.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. With that, we're going to move on with the episode. Don't have any feedback for this episode. So remember, listeners, check us out. You can find us on Spotify and other places where podcasts can be heard. You can check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. Find us on Facebook and follow us so you can get the updates and like our posts and leave us some feedback. We always like to hear what our listeners are thinking. With that, Phil, thank you.
Anytime.
Benedict, thanks for coming on and being our guest.
Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.